I guess I should start from the beginning, but it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment things went south. My wife, Lisa, and I had been married for 7 years. She was smart, passionate, and dedicated to her work as a community organizer. I admired her drive, especially when it came to her latest project, a voter registration drive aimed at increasing turnout in our town. I was supportive, often helping out when I could, but as the months rolled on, I noticed a change in her. At first, it was subtle. She started coming home later than usual, claiming she was caught up with meetings and organizing events. I was busy with my job in marketing and didn't think much of it at first. But then, I began to notice little things. Her phone would buzz incessantly, she would smile at her screen in a way that made my stomach churn, and she became less interested in our evenings together. The intimacy we once shared dwindled, and I felt a growing distance between us that I couldn't quite explain. I brushed it off for a while, convincing myself that maybe she was just stressed about the upcoming election. I tried to be understanding. After all, she was working hard for something she believed in. Still, that nagging feeling in my gut wouldn't go away. One day, while she was in the shower, I picked up her phone, intending to send her a sweet text. Instead, I found a series of messages that shattered my world. There it was, plain as day. A string of flirty exchanges between Lisa and someone named Mark, her voter registration drive coordinator. They weren't just friendly messages. They were laced with innuendos and inside jokes, suggesting a level of intimacy I never thought could exist outside our marriage. My heart raced, and I felt the blood drain from my face. I put the phone down and sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what I had just discovered. I confronted her the moment she walked out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel and oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. "Who's Mark?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and fear. The color drained from her face, and for a brief moment she looked vulnerable. "Mark, he's just a colleague, honey. We're working on a project." "Together," she replied, her eyes darting away from mine, but I wasn't buying it. I pressed further, showing her the messages I had read. The look on her face shifted from shock to defensive anger. "You went through my phone, how could you do that?" she exclaimed, her tone sharp as if she were the victim here. I felt rage boiling inside me. "You're cheating on me, Lisa. I deserve to know the truth." The confrontation spiraled into a back-and-forth where she played the victim. "You don't understand how hard this is for me. I can't just drop everything for you," she shouted. It was infuriating. She was trying to twist this around, and I could see the denial creeping in. I was devastated. The realization that the woman I loved, the woman I built a life with, was betraying me with someone else was crushing. It felt like my entire world had collapsed in a matter of minutes. The trust, the love, I felt it all slipping through my fingers like sand. I had so many questions swirling in my mind. How long had this been going on? Was it a one-time thing, or had I just been blind to something much bigger? She tried to explain her way out of it, claiming that Mark was just someone she could talk to about her work stresses, a shoulder to lean on. But I could see through her lies. I had given her my heart, and she had thrown it away for what? Some cheap thrill with a coworker. The emotional impact hit me hard, and as the shock wore off, anger took its place. I felt like a fool, and I couldn't shake off the feeling of betrayal. I had always been the supportive partner, the one who believed in her, but now I felt like I didn't even know her anymore. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, was gone. In that moment, I knew I had a decision to make. I could let this destroy me, or I could fight back and show her that I wouldn't be walked all over. I needed to reclaim my dignity and self-respect. But what did that look like? I had no idea yet, but I was determined to find out. After that explosive confrontation, I didn't sleep much. I tossed and turned, replaying every moment in my mind. I felt angry, betrayed, and more than anything, lost. How could Lisa do this to me? I had trusted her with everything, my heart, my dreams, my life. I thought we were building a future together, but now it felt like a house of cards about to collapse under the weight of her lies. In the days that followed, things were tense. Lisa tried to act normal, throwing herself into her work as if nothing had happened, while I stewed in a mix of hurt and rage. I wanted to confront her again, to demand answers for all the questions swirling in my head, but every time I looked at her, I felt a wave of nausea. How could I face the woman who had shattered my trust? It was during one of those sleepless nights that I came up with a plan. Instead of wallowing in self-pity or begging for her to return to me, I decided I would take control of my life. I had watched how Lisa had used her platform in the community, and I realized I could do something similar. I had always had a fascination with politics, and her betrayal ignited a fire in me. I could run for office, campaigning on a platform of unwavering accountability and integrity. If democracy required personal integrity, then I would show her and everyone else that I was not going to let her actions define me. I started researching local politics, potential positions I could run for, and what it would take to get elected. It was invigorating. For the first time since the affair came to light, I felt a sense of purpose. I began to channel my anger into something productive. I knew I would be a candidate who stood for honesty, especially in a world that felt so tainted by betrayal. As the election season approached, I threw myself into the campaign. I started attending town hall meetings, meeting with community leaders, and learning the ins and outs of campaigning. I met with a group of local activists who were eager to support a candidate who was passionate about accountability. They rallied behind my message, and soon I had a small but dedicated team working with me. Meanwhile, Lisa continued her involvement in the voter registration drive, throwing herself into her work even more fiercely. I could see her frustration growing. Each time we crossed paths, she attempted to engage me in conversations about the campaign, perhaps hoping to rekindle the bond we once shared. But I was no longer interested in what she had to say. I knew that every word would be laced with deceit. One evening, after coming back from a meeting, I walked in to find her sitting at the kitchen table, her usual vibrant self replaced by a worried expression. "Can we talk?" she asked hesitantly, her voice softer than I had ever heard it. "What's there to talk about, Lisa? You made your choice," I replied, my tone icy. I was done being the one who cowered. "I know I messed up. I never expected things to go this far with Mark. It was just a stupid fling," she confessed, avoiding eye contact. "I thought we could work through this. I love you." Her words felt hollow. I had heard them before, thrown around like a cheap excuse for her infidelity. Love. You threw that word away when you decided to sleep with someone else. You can't just say it and expect everything to go back to normal. I shot back, my anger flaring once more. I know, but I'm trying to make things right," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "I want to fix this. You can't just throw away 7 years like that." I felt my heart clench, but I steeled myself. "You were the one who threw it away, not me. You chose to betray me. You chose him." That was when I realized that I had another decision to make. I could either engage in this back and forth until I was exhausted, or I could stick to my plan and continue building my campaign. I was rising above the drama she had created, and I was not going to let her manipulate me into feeling guilty for my choices. The next few weeks were a blur of campaign events, meetings, and rallying support. It felt liberating to connect with people who believed in my vision. I realized more than ever that I was ready to stand for something greater than myself. With each passing day, my resolve strengthened. I no longer wanted to be the man who had been wronged. I wanted to be a man of action, someone who could inspire others and demand accountability from those in power. Even as my campaign gained traction, Lisa remained a presence in my life, but now it was like she was a ghost. I could see that she wanted to reconcile, to reconnect, but I was focused on the path ahead. I had no room for the pain she had caused me. I was becoming someone new, someone stronger. And then, in a moment that would change everything, I received a call from my campaign manager. "You have an opportunity to speak at the town's election forum next week. It's a huge platform. This could be your chance to really make a mark," he said, excitement evident in his voice. This was it. This was my moment to take a stand, not just for me, but for everyone who had ever been cheated, lied to, or betrayed. I needed to prepare, to show up and deliver a message of accountability. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I was ready to fight back, not just for my honor, but for the integrity I believed democracy should stand for. The day of the election forum arrived, and I was a bundle of nerves. My campaign manager, Joey, had done a stellar job organizing everything. I arrived at the local community center where the forum was being held and the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Local candidates were mingling, supporters were chatting, and the press was setting up their cameras. It felt surreal. Here I was, standing in the middle of this chaotic energy, ready to launch myself into the world of politics. As I walked in, I caught sight of Lisa. She was standing by the entrance, her eyes scanning the crowd. The moment we locked eyes, I felt a pang of anxiety. Part of me still wanted to reach out to her to talk things through, but the other part, a much stronger part, reminded me of the betrayal. She flashed me a smile, but I simply turned my back and walked away, focusing instead on the task ahead. I took my place among the other candidates, and the moderator began the event. Each candidate was given a chance to speak, and as I listened to others share their platforms, I felt a mix of inspiration and determination. When it was finally my turn, I could feel the weight of every eye in the room on me. The lights were bright and the microphone felt like a spotlight aimed right at my heart. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason, and I'm here to talk about accountability. I began to share my vision for the community, emphasizing the importance of integrity in leadership. I spoke passionately about my experiences and how they had shaped my beliefs about what it meant to serve the public. I shared my story, not the details of Lisa's betrayal, but the journey of finding my voice and standing up for what I believed in. As I spoke, I could see Lisa's face in the audience. Her expression flickered from pride to concern, and I felt a strange mix of emotions. I was standing there, bare and exposed, sharing my values, but I knew she was aware of the underlying pain that fueled my fire. I continued to lay out my plans, promising transparency and accountability, and I could feel the energy in the room shift. People were nodding, leaning forward, and I realized I was resonating with them. When I finished my speech, the crowd erupted into applause. I stepped down from stage, a rush of adrenaline coursing through me. I had done it. I had taken a stand, not just for myself, but for everyone who had felt wronged or betrayed. As the night wore on, I mingled with attendees, shaking hands and discussing my platform. I could see the interest in their eyes and the hope for change. But in the back of my mind, I couldn't shake the feeling that Lisa was watching me closely, likely regretting her choices. Later in the evening, she approached me, looking a bit different than she had earlier. Her expression was more serious, and I could tell she was ready for a real conversation. "Jason, can we talk?" she asked, her voice low, almost hesitant. I sighed. "What is there to talk about, Lisa? You made your choice." "I know, and I'm so sorry for everything. I realize now how much I've jeopardized. I thought you'd always be there, and now I see that I was foolish," she said, her voice tinged with remorse. "I want to fix this, to work on us. I miss you." I looked into her eyes, trying to gauge the sincerity behind her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, to hope for a reconciliation, but the deeper part of me knew better. You don't get to just decide that things are fine again because you feel guilty. You broke my trust, and it's not something that can be repaired easily, I replied, my voice steady but firm. "I've changed, Jason. I've realized how stupid I was. Please just give me a chance," she pleaded, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. I could see the pain and regret etched on her face, but I also felt the fire of my newfound strength. I didn't owe her anything. I had worked too hard to reclaim my sense of self and my purpose. "I need time, Lisa. I'm not ready to jump back into anything without knowing I can trust you again." She nodded, and I could see the acceptance in her expression. The realization that I was no longer the man she once knew hit her hard. I was determined to move forward, and that didn't involve dragging her along with me. I took a step back, creating distance while still trying to maintain a semblance of respect. "I hope you find what you're looking for, Lisa, but I can't be the person you lean on right now." With that, I turned and walked away, my heart a mix of relief and sorrow. I was doing what I needed to do for myself, but it still hurt. I felt a sense of finality as I prepared to walk into a new chapter of my life, one where I would no longer be defined by my wife's betrayal, but rather by the integrity I was willing to uphold in the face of adversity. As the weeks passed and the campaign picked up momentum, I found myself pouring more and more of my energy into my work. Every day brought a new challenge, a new opportunity to engage with the community, and I thrived on that. I was no longer just Jason, Lisa's husband. I was Jason, a candidate running for office. However, the emotional weight of my personal life remained. I knew there was still a part of me that wanted to resolve things with Lisa, to find a way to trust her again, but I also recognized that I couldn't compromise my journey for her mistakes. The longing for closure was there, but so was the drive to push through and forge a new life. Ultimately, I realized that I had gained more than I had lost. I was evolving into someone who stood for something larger than myself, and that realization was empowering. I was ready to face whatever came next, whether it was success at the ballot box or the difficult conversations that might still lie ahead with Lisa. I was walking a new path, one that led toward accountability, integrity, and the chance to be the person I was always meant to be. As my campaign continued to gain traction, the community began to rally behind me more than I could have ever imagined. I was receiving endorsements from local activists, and even a few influential community leaders were showing their support. I felt a renewed sense of purpose with each passing day as I engaged with voters, listened to their concerns, and shared my vision for a better community. But amidst the whirlwind of events, Lisa was still present in my life, a shadow that wouldn't dissipate despite my efforts to move forward. She reached out periodically, trying to engage me in conversation, but I kept her at arm's length. Whenever I saw her, it reminded me of everything that had gone wrong, and while I could see her trying to make amends, I wasn't ready to let her in. I needed to focus on my campaign and my own healing. One evening, I hosted a fundraising event at a local cafe, and the turnout was incredible. People filled the room, chatting about the issues that mattered most to them, and the atmosphere was electric. I delivered a heartfelt speech about the importance of accountability and integrity in our community, emphasizing that we needed leaders who wouldn't compromise their values for personal gain. The crowd responded positively, and I felt like I was finally finding my place. As the night went on, I noticed Lisa standing in the back, watching me. She seemed different, not the same person I had confronted weeks ago. There was a maturity in her expression, a realization that she had lost something significant. I couldn't deny that I felt a mixture of regret and sympathy, but I also knew that allowing her back into my life would jeopardize everything I had worked for. After the speeches and mingling were over, I found myself at the bar, grabbing a drink. Just then, Lisa approached me, her posture slightly more confident than before. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice steady. I hesitated but nodded, leading her outside where the sounds of the event faded into the background. As we stood under the stars, I could see the determination in her eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," she began, her voice softer than I expected. "I know I messed up and I hurt you more than I can express, but I want to show you that I'm willing to change." I crossed my arms, bracing myself for the conversation. "And what does that mean, Lisa? How can I trust that this isn't just another empty promise?" "I've started seeing a therapist," she confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "I realized that I need to work on myself before I can even think about us. I want to be better for myself and for whoever I'm with. I know I made mistakes, but I want to learn from them." I felt a flicker of something I hadn't anticipated. Hope. The idea that she was taking genuine steps to address her issues was both unexpected and relieving. "That's great to hear," I replied cautiously. "But I need time, Lisa. You can't rush reconciliation, and I can't just forget what happened." "I get that," she said, nodding. "I don't expect everything to be fine overnight, but I want to be honest with you about my progress. I'm willing to put in the work, and if you'll allow me, I'd like to show you that I can be the person you deserve." Her words struck a chord, but I couldn't help but feel apprehensive. Could I really trust her again? I had fought so hard to reclaim my independence and my sense of self. The idea of allowing her back into my life felt like stepping onto thin ice. "I'll think about it," I managed to say, trying to keep my guard up. I knew I had to tread carefully. As the evening continued, I couldn't shake the conversation from my mind. The prospect of reconciliation was daunting. Could I truly see her as a partner again after everything that had happened? The lingering pain of her betrayal weighed on me, but there was also a part of me that recognized her desire to change. The next few weeks passed in a blur of campaign activities, and I found myself immersed in community events and discussions. Each time I spoke with constituents, I felt more and more empowered. I was building something meaningful, and that was invigorating. However, Lisa remained a constant presence in my thoughts, and I knew I had to make a decision about her. Then one afternoon, I received a surprise visit from my campaign manager, Joey. He looked excited as he entered my office. "You won't believe who just endorsed you," he exclaimed, grinning widely. "Who?" I asked, feeling a rush of adrenaline at the thought of gaining more support. "Senator Davidson. He's a big deal in our district, and having his backing could change everything for your campaign. He wants to meet with you next week to discuss strategy and your vision," Joey said, practically bouncing on his feet. This was incredible news. If I could secure the support of someone like Senator Davidson, it would propel my campaign to new heights. But amidst the excitement, I felt a sense of urgency about my personal life. I needed to address my feelings for Lisa and decide what role she would play moving forward. That evening, as I prepared for bed, I reflected on everything. I had worked hard to carve out my own identity in the wake of her betrayal, but now it seemed I had a choice: to either allow her back into my life or to continue forging ahead without her. The next day, I reached out to Lisa. "Can we meet? I want to talk about us." I wrote in a text, my heart racing as I pressed send. I knew this conversation could change everything. The stakes were high, and I was ready to face whatever came next. I had fought for my integrity during this campaign, and now I needed to determine whether Lisa could be a part of that journey or if it was time to finally let go. As I paced my apartment, waiting for her response, I felt both nervous and excited. I was ready to confront the past and assess what the future might hold. Whatever the outcome, I knew I had come too far to let fear dictate my decisions. I was done being a victim of circumstance. I was ready to take control of my life once and for all. Lisa responded quickly, suggesting we meet at our favorite park. It had always been a place of warmth and connection for us, where we'd spent countless afternoons laughing and sharing dreams. Now it felt like a bittersweet reminder of everything we once had. As I made my way there, my mind raced with a mix of hope and apprehension. What would she say? What would I say? When I arrived, I spotted Lisa sitting on a bench, her fingers nervously fiddling with the hem of her sweater. The sight of her brought back a wave of memories, but I pushed them aside, reminding myself why I was there. I needed clarity. I needed to make sure I wasn't being pulled back into a situation that could hurt me again. "Hey," I said as I approached, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Hey," she replied, looking up with a tentative smile. There was a vulnerability in her eyes that I hadn't seen before, and it tugged at my heartstrings. I took a seat next to her, the silence stretching between us. "I'm glad you agreed to meet," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been thinking a lot about what we discussed at the cafe, and I want you to know I'm serious about changing." "Change is great, Lisa, but how do I know this isn't just another temporary fix?" I asked, leaning forward, needing her to understand the weight of my words. Trust is hard to rebuild after what happened. "I know I've broken your trust and I can't change the past," she said, her voice steadying. "But I want to work hard to show you that I'm committed to being better. I've been going to therapy regularly and I've been learning about myself, why I made those choices, what led me to that point. It's a process, but I'm determined." I studied her, searching for any sign of insincerity. All I saw was raw honesty. "What exactly do you want from me?" I asked, my heart pounding. "I want a chance to prove to you that I can be trustworthy again. I don't expect us to jump back into a relationship overnight, but I'd like to start with just being friends. I want to be in your life again, even if it's slowly," she explained. "I miss you, Jason. I miss us." Her words stirred a mixture of emotions within me. I felt the warmth of nostalgia mixed with the cold reality of betrayal. The idea of being friends was tempting, but I couldn't ignore the scars left by her actions. I need you to understand that my life has changed, Lisa. I'm focused on my campaign, and I can't let anything distract me from that. I need to prioritize my goals right now, I replied, carefully weighing my words. I get that, she said, her expression earnest. I understand that you're building something important, and I don't want to be a distraction. I just want a chance to be part of your life again, however that looks. I took a deep breath, allowing her words to sink in. Maybe starting as friends could provide the space we both needed. It would allow me to gauge her commitment while still protecting my heart. All right. Let's take this slow. We can start with friendship, but I need to be clear. If you slip up again, I can't go through that pain a second time, I said firmly. Thank you, Jason. I'll prove to you that I can be trustworthy, she promised, her eyes filled with determination. As we talked, I couldn't help but recall the moments we had shared in that park, our laughter, our dreams for the future. The connection was still there, but now it felt tinged with caution. I wanted to believe that she was genuine in her desire to change, but I also recognized that trust was a fragile thing. We spent the rest of the afternoon walking the park, reminiscing about the good times and discussing our lives in a way that felt both familiar and new. I could see how much she had changed in such a short time, and I found myself softening toward her. It felt like a small step forward, a cautious dance around the feelings that had once consumed us both. But as the sun began to set, signaling the end of our time together, I felt the weight of the decision I had made. I was willing to let her back into my life, but I knew that it would take time to rebuild what we had lost. I couldn't afford to let my guard down too soon. Let's take this one day at a time, I said as we reached the parking lot. We'll see where it leads, but don't expect things to go back to the way they were. I understand, she replied, a grateful smile breaking across her face. Thank you for giving me this chance. As we parted ways, I felt a mix of relief and uncertainty. I was venturing into uncharted territory, navigating the emotions of a complicated situation. But I also felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer defined by her betrayal. I was forging my own path, and that path now included the possibility of rebuilding a friendship with Lisa. In the following weeks, our interactions were cautious but hopeful. We met for coffee, shared updates about our lives, and slowly began to strengthen our connection. I found myself opening up to her in ways I hadn't anticipated, and while the past still loomed over us, I felt the weight of it begin to lift. As my campaign continued to grow, I also noticed a shift in my perspective about Lisa. She was no longer just the woman who had betrayed me. She was someone who was genuinely trying to make amends and evolve as a person. I was learning to appreciate her journey alongside my own, but I remained vigilant, aware that trust would take time to restore fully. Then came the moment I had been waiting for, the night of the election. The atmosphere was electric, filled with anticipation and excitement. I had worked tirelessly, pouring my heart and soul into this campaign, and now it was time to see if the community would rally behind me. As I stood in front of the crowd, a wave of nervous energy washed over me. I delivered my speech, fueled by passion and a deep commitment to accountability and integrity. The cheers and applause from the crowd were deafening, and for the first time in a long time I felt a sense of fulfillment. I was no longer just Jason, the man who had been cheated on. I was Jason, a candidate ready to fight for what was right. Standing there, I realized that regardless of the outcome of the election, I had already won in so many ways. I had reclaimed my identity, learned to stand tall in the face of betrayal, and found the strength to redefine my future. As the votes were counted and the results came in, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I was ready for whatever lay ahead, be it victory or defeat. I had faced my demons, confronted the past, and emerged stronger than ever. And no matter what, I knew I was on the right path. The future was mine to shape, and with it, I could finally embrace the journey ahead. The results of the election came in, and when I heard my name announced as the winner, it felt surreal. The crowd erupted into cheers, and for a moment, I was enveloped in a wave of elation. I had done it. I had taken control of my narrative and fought for something I believed in. As I stood on that stage, surrounded by my supporters and the vibrant energy of the community, I felt a rush of gratitude for everyone who had believed in me. But amidst the celebration, I couldn't shake off the reality that Lisa was still on my mind. We had grown closer over the past few weeks, and while I was proud of my victory, I knew that our relationship had not yet reached a resolution. There was still work to be done, and trust was a long road ahead of us. After the initial celebration, I spotted her in the crowd, her face lit up with joy and pride. She was beaming, and I felt a strange mix of emotions. The thrill of victory blended with the lingering uncertainty of our relationship. I walked toward her, feeling the weight of the moment. "Congratulations, Jason," she said, wrapping her arms around me in a spontaneous hug. I could feel her warmth, and it reminded me of the moments we once shared. "Thank you, Lisa. I couldn't have done it without the support of everyone around me," I replied, stepping back to look her in the eye. "Including you. I'm really proud of you. You've worked so hard for this," she said, her voice sincere. "You deserve every bit of this success." I nodded, appreciating her words but feeling the complexities of our situation. "It means a lot to me, but I still have a lot to think about. Winning is just the beginning for me, and I want to make sure I'm doing this right, both as a leader and in my personal life." "I understand," she replied, her gaze unwavering. "I know it's going to take time, but I want you to know that I'm here for you. I want to support your journey, however that looks." With each passing day, I realized that rebuilding trust would require patience and communication. I reflected on how far we had come, from the painful confrontation to this moment of celebration. We were both navigating uncharted waters, but there was a new sense of hope on the horizon. As the weeks rolled into months, I dove headfirst into my role as a newly elected official. The work was demanding but fulfilling, and I found joy in advocating for policies that reflected my values of accountability and integrity. I was determined to create positive change in the community, and I poured my heart into every initiative. Lisa remained a steady presence in my life, and we continued to build our friendship, taking small steps toward rebuilding what we had lost. I appreciated her efforts to grow as a person, and I could see her sincerity in wanting to support my journey. We spent weekends together discussing our hopes and dreams, and I found myself enjoying her company in a way I hadn't expected. Yet, there were still moments of hesitation. I often questioned whether my decision to let her back into my life was the right one. I needed to be cautious, understanding that trust was fragile. There were days when old wounds resurfaced, and I had to confront my feelings of betrayal. But I also recognized the importance of forgiveness, not just for her sake, but for my own peace of mind. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, I returned home to find Lisa waiting for me. She had set up a simple dinner complete with candles and our favorite playlist playing softly in the background. It was a thoughtful gesture, and it warmed my heart. "Hey, I wanted to do something special for you," she said, her eyes sparkling. "You've been working so hard, and I felt like you deserved a little celebration." "Thank you, Lisa. This means a lot," I replied, feeling a sense of comfort in her presence. As we sat down to eat, I took a moment to observe her, how she smiled, how she laughed, and the way she seemed genuinely happy to be here with me. After dinner, as we sat on the couch, I decided it was time to have an honest conversation. "I've been thinking a lot about us," I began, my heart racing. "About what we've been through and where we're heading." She nodded, her expression serious. "I've been thinking about it too. I know we have a long way to go, but I'm committed to doing the work. I want to show you that I can be the partner you need." "I want that too," I said, my voice steady, "but I need to be clear that I'm still cautious. Trust is something that takes time to rebuild, and I can't rush this process. We have to be patient with each other." "I completely understand," she affirmed, her eyes reflecting sincerity. "I'm willing to take the time it takes. I want to be the person who deserves your trust again." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. While the road ahead was uncertain, I realized that we were both committed to forging a new path. It wouldn't be easy, but we could navigate this together, one step at a time. As we talked late into the night, I could feel the tension beginning to lift. We were no longer defined by betrayal or heartbreak. We were two people working to reclaim their connection and build something new. Reflecting on everything I had been through, I realized that my journey had taught me invaluable lessons about resilience, accountability, and the importance of integrity, not just in politics, but in personal relationships as well. I had taken charge of my life, learned to stand up for my values, and grown stronger in the face of adversity. As I embraced this new chapter, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The future held uncertainties, but I was ready to face them head-on, armed with newfound strength, purpose, and the hope that together, Lisa and I could continue to grow, heal, and redefine what love meant for us. Whenever I looked back at the path I had traveled, I knew one thing for certain. I would never let betrayal define me. Instead, I would continue to strive for integrity in every facet of my life and with every person I encountered.